If you've just joined us, you've missed great stuff there from Paul Rouse talking about the fallout from 1916 Bloody Sunday and the impact that it had in sport and the role that sport played in the War of Independence as well. It's part of his lecture series that you can get every Tuesday night here on Off the Ball, and you can get it, of course, on the OTB podcast network. Just search Paul Rouse Off the Ball. What are we at? Bang on 8 o'clock, a minute past 8 now this morning. Eoin, last night, obviously, the German version of the Classico. How do you actually say it? What's the correct German?
Der Klassiker.
That's the correct German pronunciation. Der Klassiker. Okay, that's pretty easy.
But nobody says that. Apparently, it's a completely fabricated phrase, just almost tongue in cheek to say we've got our own version of El Clasico.
I thought
so
that.
We're going to
marketing
all right,
BS.
Sorry. So it's just me who thought it was actually a legitimate thing then.
Well, I was like, how come? It's funny. This is a new. So. Did they try and do a Manchester Classico for a while? The English Classico was Man United Liverpool. I mean, it's not a Classico. There's one Classico, and that's the Classico, and let's all stop losing. These games don't need the marketing. They actually don't. They're good enough.
What about the Super Classico? Is that a legitimate one?
The Super Classico is when it's for a Super Cup, is it?
No, it's Boca River, isn't it?
Oh, sorry. Okay. I mean, did they always call that the Super Classico, or when did they decide this also needed marketing? Because it doesn't.
No, that very much has the bang of a new generation Pokemon off it, where they just add a couple of syllables onto an old Pokemon just to make it a new evolution. Okay,
the perfect analogy that went straight over my head, at least it would have done 3 or 4 years ago, but now I'm like, okay, I get you now. I understand this again. Life comes full circle and comes at you fast, and that's the only thing I'll say. 087 918 180 is the number if anybody wants to get in touch with us. I've got a confession to make. I was kind of looking forward to the game last night, and then I checked my Twitter feed and it was already half time. I was like, oh man, I forgot that it was an early kickoff.
And early kickoffs are so good for us as well, getting up early in the morning. It's an odd feeling having watched a really satisfying 90 minutes and looking at your clock and it's like it's only 20 past 7. The night is still a baby. You don't have to go straight to bed. You can actually digest what you've watched for a little while, and it's a fantastic feeling. And it was really good, Ger. I'm not sure, did you catch any of the highlights afterwards? But this whole lack of fans thing actually doesn't make that much of a difference. It makes a difference for sure because you've got two rivals going up against one another. You've got one of the best stadiums in world football, which would have provided an added edge to things. But when you're watching two of the best teams in world football go toe-to-toe, you don't need fans to appreciate how good this is. All elements of it were outstanding. I actually thought Dortmund played some of the better football throughout the game, certainly started the better team, but Bayern obviously just a bit more clinical, and Kimmich's goal was just, oh my God, what a chip. Goalkeeper should have got to it, but it's kind of one of those where you're in a little bit of disbelief because you've got the commentator telling you that this is right, but you're not quite sure if this has definitely happened within the rules because there is no fans to kind of guide you. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why there has been such a hankering for fans, is that it kind of informs us of the seriousness of things. That if there's a ball that fizzes across the box and there's silence, you're like, well, somebody's clearly been offside here. If there's a ball that fizzes off the box and there's a big cheer or a whoop from the crowd, you realise that it's actually legit. And that's what I miss. But Joshua Kimmich, take a bow. It was unreal.
I think the other thing about fans is they see people making runs, so they understand what's going to come in the next 10 seconds as opposed to what's also just happened, which you're missing out on, and they can help inform your experience, particularly because the TV cameras don't actually capture the full 360-degree experience. So I guess that's to follow on, and we'll learn a little bit more about this. Is that the league over? Is that the unfortunate part about this? I mean, should nobody have tapped Bayern on the shoulder here and said, look, lads, you're going to win the league title eventually. Maybe you want to keep things interesting for a little while.
Yeah, I saw Andy Mitten tweet last night saying the Bundesliga is a disgrace. Bayern Munich have the league wrapped up by June already. 8 in a row is what it's going to be at this point. And they show no signs of going anywhere. Like they have, even when it comes to the next generation, they have the better players. Like Alphonso Davies at left back is just unbelievable. If you were building a team from scratch now for the future and you could pick one left back in the world, you would pick this guy. That is how good he is, even though he's still a teenager, born in November 2000, the Canadian international.
But hang on. Actually, Dortmund have the better collection of young players. It's just that they won't be Dortmund players this time next year or the year after. That's
my point. Sorry, is that Alphonso Davies would become a staple for Bayern Munich. the way things have gone, Erling Haaland could become a staple for Bayern Munich in a couple of years. We just don't know this. When it comes to the youth of Dortmund, like we only saw a second half performance from Jadon Sancho yesterday. He didn't start the game. Like we saw Reina come on for a little bit at the end, but it was mostly Haaland who was flying the flag for the youngsters in that Dortmund team. You just can't fully invest in the fact that they're going to be Dortmund players for the long haul.
No, and you wonder about the attractiveness that league is going to have if Bayern keep winning season after season after season after season after season. This was the model that people would hold up when they complained about the Premier League. It's like, oh, this is a largely fan-owned, at least portion of every club fan-owned league, and it's the right way to do it, and fans keep going, and the attendances are very good, and there's a sense of ownership. But actually, there's a single power that is kind of ruining the competitive integrity of the competition.
And I almost wonder if it's going to take something like an RB Leipzig to come along and actually win a title and wrestle it away. And there's actually a third player in this, because like 8 is a lot. Dortmund have tried everything under the sun post Jurgen Klopp to try and get this title back. And you can't really blame them. They've gone close this season, last season, like Aubameyang's last season, which was about 2 seasons ago. It seemed that they came relatively close, and they have been knocking on the door. And maybe that's because Bayern Munich haven't been the best team in Europe over the last little while. They've just been the best team in Germany, and maybe they've slipped a tad. But really, you're clutching at straws when you're trying to make that sort of argument, and it's hard to see how Dortmund make a leap forwards to actually close that gap. So they're 7 points ahead at the moment. It's probably going to finish up 7 or 10 points as a title win for Bayern Munich come the end of the season. Like, as you say, it would be great to be able to watch the likes of Haaland and Sancho and seeing them grow as players over the next couple of years with Dortmund, because that is the only way they can close the gap. But once they leave, there's no guarantee that they're even going to have teenagers of that quality coming through again. So you're kind of looking at perhaps the mega money of Red Bull maybe giving Bayern some bit of a challenge in the next 5 years.
Yeah, okay. I should remind everybody, actually, the best place to get the Paul Rice podcast, it now has its own podcast stream. It's called History of Sport. So if you just search History of Sport, wherever you get your podcasts, you will get it there. There's a bunch of other things you can search for as well. You can subscribe to Highlights. We'll definitely put it up there for you as well. But History of Sport, its own podcast stream, so you can binge on the entire lecture series from one of the most articulate voices speaking about sport in any era in Ireland. That's Paul Rice, and we're delighted he's part of this. 8 minutes past 8 this morning, Shane Hannon is with us. Shane, how are you getting on?
Not too bad, lads. Keeping well. Enjoying the Der Klassiker chat there.
Yeah? Did you imbibe some Der Klassiker last night?
Watched the highlights back. Beautiful chip. And yeah, it's still eerie not having the crowd. But yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines. I find it hard to feel the vibe of this as a classic, given that Dortmund sell all their players to Bayern. I know a lot of people in Germany as well. I think Dortmund-Schalke is actually the real derby in the Bundesliga. And I guess Bayern probably have more of a rivalry with the Bavarian teams like Nuremberg and whatever else, but it feels like a bit of a faux classic, a bit of a forced derby, if you like.
Yeah, just on the thing of the fans train, it was interesting. BT Sport, obviously, they went a cappella last night, just commentators and sounds of the players. Fox Sport, one in the United States, went for fake crowd sounds. So depending on your country, that's how you're going to experience the Bundesliga.
Well, of course, the Americans went with fake noises and extra little sound bites. They kind of tend to do that, but maybe it adds to it. I don't know. It probably has a bit of a weird vibe to it, but whatever adds to the entertainment value, I guess. But if it's kind of nice hearing the players shout, hearing the managers scream as well.
Can you do both? Is the crowd noise, the fake crowd noise, so loud that you can't hear what's going on, or do they boost those mics so you can hear that and also you hear crowd noise? I don't know. I haven't seen the American one.
No, you can't. You can't really hear anything in the pitch going on whatsoever. Like one of the things that's kind of noticeable without the fake crowd noise is just you're hearing every stroke of the ball. Like maybe if there's like a very weak pass around the middle of the park away from the microphones, you don't hear it. But just I don't know. It's just something that you hear maybe 5% of the really tough efforts during a packed stadium game. Here you're hearing every little touch with an empty stadium, and that definitely adds to it. It's kind of like when you're watching the UFC when they were in Florida a couple of weeks ago, that you could hear every punch connect with the skin. It's not really on the same level, but you can hear boot connecting with ball, which is kind of a nice oral sensation. But no, you can't hear anything when Fox Sports are pumping in fake crowd noises.
Okay, so have you decided which is your preferred one just yet?
I don't know, to be honest, because last night was the first time I actually kind of picked up on the extra, what the silence brings. And as Phil was saying the other day, let's have this when the Premier League comes back, and let's hope we can pick up some English happening on the pitch that's actually quite funny. And then we've got a product.
I mean, really, the Premier League should get somebody to sign Wayne Rooney immediately and allow him to be parachuted into the league just for the sake of what he would say over the final 7 or 8 weeks of the condensed season. Because I think that would be amazing. I think that would actually, we would all be watching. You know, you could stick everything on delay by 1 minute, so it's somebody's job to pull the fader down, back up, down, back up, down, back up, down, up.
I mean, we all see the players covering their mouths at the end of games, trying to keep the lip readers at bay, but I guess now they have to also be extremely quiet when they're talking to rival players after a match.
Whisper,
because we can all hear what they're saying.
Like your man Mass back in the day.
Well, I was kind of considering that like you could easily put like microphones on there. You could sneak them into their masks, their protective masks, and they wouldn't know a thing. It's like, it is interesting looking at the variation of masks being used in a game. Like some of the coaches had proper industrial style masks. One of the Bayern Munich coaches just had a Bayern Munich crested one. I saw at Arsenal training yesterday, Mikel Arteta had an Adidas one, and those Adidas masks, the regular black ones, are now sold out online. You couldn't buy a single one yesterday if you looked to buy one. They're flying off the shelves, and we have this whole new brand of marketing. If David Beckham was a footballer today, he would be sporting the coolest mask on the return to play of the Premier League, I dare say.
Has anyone thought of the GA face mask yet? I saw someone had a Galway one. I don't know if it was a GA specific, but it was a Galway themed mask. But there could be a market there for Gaelic masks. I'd buy a Monaghan mask for sure.
I presume it's close to existing already, Shane.
Yeah, someone has to have thought of that.
I mean, I can't believe you've just given this amazing business way idea at the time where we're on the precipice of the greatest depression since the Great Depression, and you've just given it away for nothing, Shane.
Copyright. Yeah.
What have you got for us this morning?
Yeah, we'll kick off with the Premier League lads. Clubs expected back in the latest phase of Project Restart today, which will allow players resume contact training in groups of up to 12. So far, players have had to socially distance since returning to the training pitches last week. On Monday, of course, this week, the UK government approved groups of up to 3 players resuming tackling. There could be a bonanza in store for TV viewers as well. Matches potentially being staggered across 5 time slots on Saturdays and Sundays if and when the season resumes at the end of June. It's possible matches will be staged at noon, 2 p.m, 4 p.m, 6 p.m, and 8 p.m on a Saturday and a Sunday, and played at 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. in midweek. There is a likelihood that some games will be free to air. Meanwhile, the takeover of Newcastle United by a fund backed by the government of Saudi Arabia could be in doubt after the World Trade Organization found that the state was involved in illegal streaming of Premier League games, a link the Saudis deny. On Bundesliga matters then, Bayern, as we said, have gone 7 points clear at the top of the Bundesliga. Joshua Kimmich goal gave them a 1-0 win behind closed doors away to closest rivals Borussia Dortmund last night. That win has left Bayern firmly on course for, as we said, an 8th German league title in a row. Borussia Mönchengladbach moved into the Champions League places after their 0-0 draw with Werder Bremen. Wolfsburg beat Bayer Leverkusen by 4-1, while it was a 3-3 thriller between Frankfurt and Freiburg in the other game last night. The SPFL will consider Hearts' proposal to change the structure of the Scottish leagues later today. They are set to be relegated to the Championship following the early end of the Premiership campaign. They submitted their plans last night. Hearts are requesting a temporary switch to 3 14-club divisions for the next 2 years, and Aberdeen do say they will back that plan. Rugby news, London Irish player Sean O'Brien believes rugby will be one of the last sports to return in the UK because of the coronavirus. Meanwhile, Munster have paused their season ticket scheme for the 2020-21 campaign as rugby counts the cost of the pandemic. The former CEO of the English Rugby Football Union, Francis Barron, has proposed a one-off tournament involving all world nations in Britain and Ireland in June or July of next year that would help raise funds for global unions. To horse racing, there have been a total of 369 entries submitted for the return of racing in the UK at Newcastle next Monday. Only 120 runners will be permitted, though, on the day. Lee Westwood is optimistic the European Tour golf season will resume in July at the British Masters. The Englishman is due to host the tournament at Close House. So far, 17 competitions have been cancelled or indeed postponed because of COVID-19. Manchester United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants to extend Odion Ighalo's loan spell at the club. The striker is due to return to his club in China at the end of the month, and that had been the word over the last week or so. But with the English season being extended, Solskjaer says he is eager to keep Ighalo at Old Trafford for longer. United fans as well might be interested in Pat Nevin's take on offtheball.com as well. This morning he's pitting Roy Keane against Steven Gerrard. That article is up on offtheball.com. He was on the show last night. He says they were so core to their team, but there was a period when Stevie G was the team. So you can read why he thinks Steven Gerrard was better than Roy Keane on offtheball.com.
He's right that Steven Gerrard was the team. That team was a rubbish team compared to the team that was made better by Roy Keane. That's the thing. Gerrard was a really good player. He said something else very interesting. If I wanted to win a game, I'd pick Roy Keane. If I needed to win a game, I'd pick Roy Keane, which is kind of the whole point of being a manager in, so if you're Alex Ferguson, you're going to pick Roy Keane over Stevie G. If that's your choice, and obviously that choice never really exists because they could absolutely play together. But and I understand when you're picking these teams, you pick the player who thrilled you the most. And Steven Gerrard was a pretty thrilling player for very large portions of many games, but also, not as consistent as Roy Keane and not as much of a winner as Roy Keane.
Could I just one question here, which is not a kind of worms we should be opening at 16 minutes past 8 on a Wednesday morning. But if we did a straight swap of Roy Keane for Frank Lampard, would that have been the most mutually beneficial trade between the Republic of Ireland and England ever, given that Saipan still exists and we would have had Frank Lampard potentially driving us on? And instead of the Gerrard versus Lampard situation that England had to find themselves in constantly, they could have had Gerrard and Keane, as you say, Ger, could have played together perfectly.
Sorry, England would have won 3 World Cups. What are you talking about? This is the most heresy, idiotic thing you've just done.
We would have had our best player playing for us in France, because
and we would have gone out in the quarterfinals. What are you talking about?
I would 100% take going out in the quarterfinals instead of the only World Cup memory Shane and I have, Ger, is going out in the last 16. We've never seen Roy Keane play in a World Cup.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
England would have won the World Cup, and you've just gifted them the single thing they missed: heart and passing from central midfield.
But they almost did it with Jordan Henderson and
Exactly. They'd have won 3 World Cups in a row. What are you talking about? It'd be a disaster.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Worst idea ever.
Okay, we would have got an extra. We probably would have qualified for 1 extra World Cup, and I'm all for that.
This is almost as bad as you saying that we had an Irish winner of the British Open overseas last year when Shane Lowry won in Portrush.
Almost.
Not a direct quote, but it was something along those lines. I'm an imperialist at heart.
Yeah, he went abroad. He crossed the seas to Portrush.
He brought the claret jug home. How did it get through the security at the airport?
I see Heart of Midlothian are pulling the old Team 33, except it's Team 14. That's their play, right?
Yeah, the fact that Aberdeen are backing them is quite interesting as well. Look, it's a bit ridiculous and it's a bit pathetic, just like the Team 33 argument when Henry did that handball. But I guess it's financially very, very unstable for them if they get relegated to the Championship. So look, you can't help them for trying at least. This is
definitely a more legitimate way of, you're relegating us when we actually could have had enough games left to get out of relegation, even though they were playing really bad. Right, are you done, Shane? Is that enough?
Yeah, all good. Cheers, Ger.
Nice one. Thanks a million. It's Shane Hannon with us there, giving us an update on what's happening around the world of sport. Here's what's coming up on the show for you this morning. A brilliant Jacob Stockdale interview coming your way at around about 8:35 this morning. Kieran Sheahan's going to join us. He's involved in a fundraiser with Cork GAA for Pieta House. Going to talk to us about what life in lockdown has been like for him. Just back from Australia, obviously. And back in the Cork team, having come back from Australia. And then Gavin James joins us for the OTB Culture Hall of Fame. He's putting Back to the Future in. Oh, and one of the things that we didn't realise was that you are a complete Back to the Future nerd. This is This is just behind the US office, or is it right there at the US office?
Well, in terms of cinema, it could probably be my 3rd favourite movie of all time. It's possibly top 3. I would be confident enough to say it makes my Mount Rushmore of my favourite movies.
What else is there?
In there behind The Departed and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Back to the Future could be in there in terms of movies that I enjoy the most, that I find so rewatchable. Love this I can't remember. I'm trying to think what age I would have been when I first watched it. I would say that the movie was about 12, 15 years old when I first laid eyes on it, and oh my God, I was like, this is the best concept ever. This is brilliant. I cannot wait for the year 2015 when it eventually comes around because it looks amazing. I'm going to have a hoverboard in the year 2015. It gave you hope. It had a great story. It had brilliant acting. It's funny. Like Back to the Future 3 is crap, let's face it, but the first two, fantastic. I don't have the words to describe how much I love Back to the Future.
Right, okay, well, you get a chance to explain it all to Gavin James a little bit later on, and he will share in that love as well. Time now for the sports pages.
OTB AM.
We'll start with offthewall.com, and that's John Gonzalez from last night. Steve Kerr has done nothing in professional basketball but win. He's grown a beard. That's obviously a picture of him from the screen grab from The Last Dance, from his time with the Bulls, and I guess that's him as the Warriors coach. That's the Warriors logo, where obviously he has overseen a bit of a revolution with Steph Curry. Debunking the GAA's self-made myths of 1916 and the Great War. Some brilliant stuff from Paul Rouse, pointing out that there were more GAA members at the Battle of the Somme than there were in 1916 in the Rising, and the mythology that comes from that. And rugby, nice bit of niggle. Brian O'Driscoll's worst team to lose to. It's not England, it's Wales. Spoiler alert. Tyler Hamilton spat in the soup, the Omerta in pro cycling. A brilliant interview yesterday with Tyler Hamilton where he just started to open up about the repercussions of telling the truth and how really Lance Armstrong is not telling the truth just yet. He's telling a partial truth, which is kind of worse than even not telling any truth. And then Pat Nevin talking about why he prefers Stevie G to Roy Keane up there with the best I've ever seen, which is high praise. And Pat Nevin knows a thing or two about football, so I'm sure a lot of people are going to dismiss that this morning. There'll be a lot of war breaking out on keyboards from bedrooms and on phones right around these islands. But sure, look, we'll see what happens.
The back page of the Irish Independent this morning features a photograph of a flailing Rowan Berkey as Joshua Kimmich scores that goal to chip Bayern Munich into a 1-0 lead and probably the Bundesliga title last night. The main story here, though, league players to grill Quinn over return to play impasse, writes Dan McDonnell. Interim FAI CEO faces questions arising from slow progress in attempts to convince clubs. So Quinn's going to meet with a delegation of League of Ireland players this Friday, and they're going to discuss the concerns around the delay to finalising a plan for a return to football. So obviously, the vast majority of these clubs garner a huge amount of their revenue from people coming through turnstiles and paying to go see them play football. That hasn't been an opportunity. That hasn't been a financial opportunity for them in recent weeks. It won't be a financial opportunity for them for quite some time. So now Quinn and the FAI are trying to come up with ways to make up for that and to make it financially sensible for them to go back to play, because obviously otherwise some of these players will need to find other jobs or will need to sign up for the 350 quid a week or whatever it may be. But they're in a bit of an impasse at the moment. Will they actually be in a safe space to actually earn their money again as footballers? So now Quinn going to be put under the pump by some of the players and some of the League of Ireland representatives later on this week. And then Martin Breheny, Ulster's Captain Marvel's, leads by example in top 20 rankings. So Martin Breheny going through his top 20 players of the last 50 years in Ulster this morning in both hurling and football. Peter Canavan, Michael Murphy and Kieran McGeady all featuring near the top of their respective lists.
Who did Kerry? What was the Kerry situation?
The Kerry, who was number one?
Yeah.
Jack O'Shea.
Jack O'Shea's who's number two?
Pat Spillane.
Right, okay. Is that putting a bit of pressure on you for your Kerry Mount Rushmore, which is what, a month away? 3 weeks away?
Like 4 days away.
Oh, you're doing it on Monday. I'm missing it. Right. So this
Tuesday, yeah.
Oh, right. So this is your weekend of hell.
Yeah, I have a.
Did the Mafia?
I had it made up.
No, you're doing it. Have you alerted them to the fact that, because they're going to start picking at you now. They're going to start sliding into your DMs.
I need to mobilise them soon and tell them to set up Kerry Mafia 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 and get those handles on Twitter now so that they can back me up. Or I might just set them up myself, those handles, and come to bat for myself come next Tuesday, because it is going to be war. Let's just say if it was me versus Martin Breheny on my Mount Rushmore, we would have two very different looking mountains.
Right. Jack O'Shea better be on it. That's all I'm saying. We could have put him on Kildare's, actually, given that Kildare made him who he is, because he's been living there for most of his life. The Irish Times sports section today: Munster braced for worst of financial crisis. Gavin Comiskey is wondering what impact the debt repayments for Thomond Park are going to eventually have on Johan van Grant's playing squad. That's the same picture that Eoin's been talking about. Saudi Newcastle takeover in serious doubt. Bayern victory, the only familiar part of their Klassiker. This is Sean Ingall's story. The controversial 300 million Saudi Arabia-funded takeover of Mike Ashley's Newcastle appears to be in serious doubt after the World Trade Organization ruled that the country is behind a pirate satellite TV and streaming service that offers illegal access to sporting events. So this was the issue that was raised recently as a means of trying to stop the deal. The final report won't be published until mid-June, and it's understood the independent ruling firmly establishes that the Saudi government is behind Be Out Q, which is obviously a pirate method of getting football piped into your home. So not a great look for an owner of one of the Premier League clubs to be offering a way for one of the broadcasters' products to be pirated, who's a partner of the Premier League. So this is going to cause a little bit of an issue around the boardroom table. Perhaps it's the type of thing that you can use as a bargaining chip. Well, obviously this can go away if we're allowed to buy this thing. So let's wait and see exactly how the politics of this plays out.
Saudi getting done for illegal streaming boxes is like Al Capone getting done for tax evasion. That this is the thing that alerts the authorities in the first place. It's like it does seem like it's going to become a legitimate stumbling block.
Look, it will be interesting to see. I mean, you would have thought that loads of different stumbling blocks for other owners in the past might have prevented them from getting a hold of clubs, but that hasn't been the case. There has been no willingness on the part of the owners of the other clubs to say, "Oh, you can't do that," because then it's like, you know. And the other thing is, a lot of the other clubs probably want to sell to Saudi-backed businesses or Saudi-related businesses or other businesses which are effectively fronts for sovereign states to try and buy them. And if you suddenly introduce this, they're going to say, well, it lowers the value of all those clubs and those assets. And traditionally, people who own a lot of stuff want the value of that to go up. And they tend to vote in a manner which will allow that to happen. So it will be interesting to see if somebody else can step in and stop it, like the British government, who are, obviously so well run and so on top of their brief at the moment that stepping in. Look, and maybe this is an opportunity for them to get some positive publicity with a lot of the country, with the exception of the city of Newcastle.
Absolutely. Back page of the Irish Examiner, or the front page of their sports section, I should say. GAA must reopen pitches to protect well-being of young people. This is former Mayo and Galway boss John O'Mahony. He's saying the GAA should bring forward the date to open their GAA pitches, I should say, for young people. There are some suggestions that the GAA are looking into potentially bringing forward that date from July 20th to the end of next month, but that's very much TBC at the moment. Moran, meanwhile, never believed Kerry's golden years could be eclipsed. This is Kevin Moran, who's been speaking over the last couple of days, saying that the Kerry 4-in-a-row team, he thought they would be the best of all time until, of course, the Dubs did 5 in a row. McIlroy doubts of a Ryder Cup this year, meanwhile, and Cheltenham and Liverpool game increased suffering, says a report that came out yesterday.
I would have thought that golf was more likely to play something like the Ryder Cup this year on the back of the fact that it's coming back very soon, no? Rory obviously wants to wait and play it in front of fans, but it felt to me that the mood around golf was way more upbeat than Rory suggested in his interview with the BBC yesterday.
So did I, actually. It's been the sport that we've watched over the last couple of years. Last couple of weeks. Rory himself obviously played the Sunday before last. He obviously just sees that fans are a pretty big thing when it comes to the Ryder Cup. And I guess, like everything else, the Ryder Cup has its own commercial requirements as well. And getting people to actually buy tickets to the Ryder Cup is an important thing too.
Yeah, all right. I don't have the Herald there. If we've got a screen grab, we'll stick it up for you and I'll tell you what's on the back of it. But I didn't get one in today. So if we don't have that, we can move on.
The London Times is next if you don't have that. Players drop concerns over full training is the headline on the back of the London Times. GPS tracking may help fight spread of infection. So the Premier League Project Restart set to receive a significant boost today, with all 20 clubs agreeing to return to full contact training. So they're away with it really at this point, as we see a photograph there of Robert Lewandowski celebrating as Bayern Munich win last night. Test fear stalls rugby's return. Meanwhile, professional rugby union in England cannot return to play until it has answered the multi-million-dollar question of what to do if a player tests positive for COVID-19, a senior executive has said. And 369 entries for first race meet. There will be a lot of disappointed owners when the final fields are made known for the return of British racing after a bumper 369 entries were submitted for the card at Newcastle on Monday. That'll be the first meeting in the UK that'll take place since March 17th.
The Irish Sun, Hend game. Captain Stars now feel safe to play again. So Jordan Henderson said, yeah, let's go. He's obviously been in that captain's WhatsApp group, and clubs give go-ahead for phase 2 training. So, you know, we're getting there. Fox in the box, no, it's not a giant paddling pool at Leicester. Jamie Vardy is just doing one-touch training by himself. The Fox has found a new way to social distance, but defenders should not make a habit of leaving Vardy alone in the box when football returns. See what they did there, because he likes to score. Let Odeon dream on, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says. Odion Ighalo should complete his Manchester United dream and turn down the 72 million that he's been offered to go back to China. Take the money, Odion, take the money, because it's going to be a long life and you have to live it. Let's do it twice in one night. They're talking about football, Owen, don't worry. Premier League bosses could adopt Champions League style kick-off times, meaning fans could watch 2 games in one evening. Or 5 games at the weekend was what one of the other newspapers was suggesting. Sorry, 5 games in one day on a Saturday and 5 games in one day on a Sunday. That'd be a lot of football.
It is a lot. It is the lead on the back of the Mirror as well here. Netflix is their headline. It's a perfect 10 for armchair fans as live television bonanza will screen 5 back-to-back Prem games every Saturday and Sunday. Some variation of this should have been what the Premier League were doing anyway for the last few years. Like, they're given the appetite that people have for football and the success that the television rights have been in terms of the cost of them going up and up and up, if you want to call that success. It's a wonder that they haven't managed to maneuver some sort of political loophole to actually get this 3 o'clock blackout lifted in the UK, or actually go to 8 o'clock kickoffs on a Saturday night sooner than they did. Like, that only happened within the last 18 months, really. This really has the bang of a World Cup Saturday or Sunday off it in the group stages, having these sort of 4 games, 5 games on this occasion on one day. A lot of them people might not be interested in, but like, they should be there and available for people. I think that the idea that there's a lot of Premier League games that are very, very difficult to watch in full, I think is actually a little bit of a shock at the moment, given how far the sport has come and how ridiculously commercial it is. It's
just that it's on too many nights, right? And there are a lot of games over the course of the season. So you kind of try and compare it with other sports around the world. Like, you know exactly when there's NFL. There's 1 game on the Monday, there's 1 game on the Thursday, and then everything else is on the Sunday. And there's essentially 3 staggered kickoff times, as in 9:05 and 9:20 kickoff, but that kind of largely irrelevant. With football, you can have a Monday night game. Certain weeks there are Tuesday, Wednesday night games, there are Friday night games, there are Saturday evening games, there are Saturday afternoon games, there are Saturday early kickoffs, which there used to be. There are Sunday kickoffs at 3 different times, depending on policing arrangements. It's like, it's hard to know when you're supposed to be tuning in to the big game.
I guess that's up to yourself to. I don't think that's like really the problem for the Premier League. I think that if you're running the Premier League, you want to get as much exposure as possible at all these different times, rather than having this clump of fixtures at 3 o'clock. Unless you have a fantastic television product like Red Zone that could go out at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. Obviously, for political reasons, they can't do that at the moment. But like on the NFL, if you're an American football fan, you could spend your entire Saturday watching college football, and they're even more staggered than the 3 days of the Premier League, or the 3 fixtures of the NFL, I should say. And then if you throw in a London fixture, like, they've got 4 in a day as well. Like, it has always struck me that if you are a proper NFL fan and you are living in the United States when the time zone suits you, you will sit down at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you basically don't get up until 10 o'clock at night. That is what the Premier League are now going to give us the option to do on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, you do wonder, though, if actually in future, if they were to move to a 5 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday afternoon, you could have that Red Zone, or a 6 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday evening.
Yeah, why haven't they done that already? That's what's been the issue behind that, I wonder?
Fans, travelling fans, and their inability to get back from Watford to Newcastle. If that game kicks off the fringes of London at 5 o'clock, it finishes at 7, you get back to Newcastle at like 3 in the morning. Do they even run trains? I don't know. Like, I suppose that has been the issue, but suddenly the fans are going to find themselves on the outside for the next 12, 18 months. and the game's going to change fairly significantly as a result of that.
And will it change back is the question.
Well, no. There's a good opportunity here, which the businesses are likely to seize to radically alter that and put the fan further down the totem pole than they've already fallen. Daily Mail for you, a Eurovision. Europe shows the way as GAA plots final countdown. This is a story from Mark Gallagher saying that Croke Park officials are in close contact with continental GAA clubs who've resumed training, trying to find a pathway for a return in Ireland. My friend died from COVID after Cheltenham. This is a story from Jessica Harrington, who's saying that one of her friends actually attended Cheltenham and passed away from the illness, having got it there. She says, it was what it was. The English government said it could go ahead. So then it was up to individuals to make a decision. We've got to have a bit of self-responsibility. Hindsight is great. If we knew what we know now about the virus, a lot more people probably wouldn't have gone. Maybe they shouldn't have run the festival, but they did, and it's done. And we can't go back and say, oh, we shouldn't have done this, or they should have got a lot of criticism. I think they got a fair amount of criticism at the time. We certainly were talking about the fact that this should be behind closed doors every day, and the fact that it wasn't was a pall over the entire thing. Like, certainly when those crowd pictures were emerging, everybody was like, is this really what should happen? It was the same with the Liverpool Atletico game at the time as well.
Feels like an absolute, even a week later, it kind of felt like a different world at that point. Back page of the Irish Daily Star this morning is Batch of the Day, fans to feast on 5 Teddy Prem games a day, officials pushing to make games free to air. You got a picture there as well of the empty stadium in Dortmund last night, and Rory can't see Ryder, as you mentioned, that Rory McIlroy, hugely uncertain that the Ryder Cup will go ahead this year.
Okay, so, sorry, what did you just do there?
That was the Irish Daily Star.
Okay, so the Telegraph is next for me. We can stick that up. I don't have it. I do have it. Give me a second here. Talk amongst yourselves. Don't worry about it. 8:37 a.m. this morning. 0879 180 180 is the number. Clubs to use COVID-19 warning system. Colour-coded method will alert sides to training risks. Premier League teams to resume contact sessions. And there's Jamie Vardy on his own. Filed reverse decision to pull plug on women's team, which is a story about AFC filed. Virus Cup could raise 250 million. So the Rugby Football Union has been urged to back radical plans for a World Cup-style tournament in the United Kingdom and Ireland next summer, which could raise up to 250 million to ease the financial crisis facing the game. Proposals for a 16-team invitational tournament to be held in June and July next year have been submitted to World Rugby and the RFU with a working title of the Coronavirus Cup of World Rugby. The plan, drawn up by Francis Barron, the former RFU chief executive, is based on the 2015 World Cup in England, but would involve playing matches at the national stadiums of each of the 4 home unions. That would be us. The tournament, involving 31 matches over 6 weeks, would mean the postponement of the Lions Tour to the following summer to minimise this disruption, and it'd be a chance for us to win a World Cup. It sounds like a win-win. Are we in?
We're in. Any chance to win a World Cup, we're absolutely in. If it's a no tackling, no scrums World Cup and we win it, it counts. Any World Cup will do.
He obviously knows the figures fairly intimately and says that the 2015 World Cup generated net profits for the game of around 400 million. He thinks this could generate a net profit for distribution to unions of 200 to 250 million. This would be in addition to the 80 million that World Rugby has already put in place. And so the draft for the tournament: South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, Japan, England, France, Wales, Scotland, Italy, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, United States, Canada and Ireland.
I'm just really impressed by your pronunciation of Samoa there.
I've been working on it.
I like the sound of it. Are you pro or against it on first reading?
I mean, it's so wild that it sounds a bit more entertaining than Six Nations finishing another Six Nations before Christmas, and then a back-to-back home and away Six Nations in March, April. Like, that's a lot of Six Nations.
Who cares about that, really? It's like, yeah, especially if there's going to be a new one next year. Like, right off the Six Nations, like, by all means, right off the hammering that Ireland got in Twickenham as well. Finish the season off. Like, but if you had this to look forward to, it'd be quite a good thing to look forward to. And with national teams, you can have your bio bubble if you need it. Like, hopefully by that stage we won't need any bio bubbles. But so we're talking summer
of 2021, a random World Cup in the middle of the whole thing, do you give a replica trophy out? And do you say, sorry, South Africa, you have to defend this? Or are you like, look, it's just a world tournament. There's a one-off piece of Waterford crystal that we've specially commissioned for this?
But it can't be the Webb Ellis Trophy because it is called the COVID Cup. Like, it would have to be in the emblem of the coronavirus thing, you know, with the red and green. And that will have to be made out of metal, maybe out of Waterford crystal, actually, and handed to the winner. And it's just once off, and then they keep it forever, really.
Can we have the final in Dublin? I mean, like, if you give us the final in Dublin, we're on board.
Absolutely. As long as it's not Cardiff, says you. Anywhere but Cardiff.
Right, so that's the Telegraph.
Finally, or second last one for me, I should say, Guardian this morning leads with that story that you mentioned about the Saudi takeover of Newcastle in serious doubt after the WTO ruling, and clubs ready to vote for contact training return. And that's the Premier League.
The Irish News next. Lockdown could turn the screw on Dublin veterans. McGuigan. This is Brian McGuigan. I think yesterday Declan Darcy was in the paper saying this rest for their bodies is going to be good. Brian McGuigan reckons, some of them might just tip over into not being available anymore. And I think it's probably going to be the case for some of them that this rest is good, and for others it's going to be the off season that was just one off season too many for them.
The back page of As this morning features Gareth Bale back at it, back on the golf course. Golf, goal. I presume that is the easiest translated page in the history of As right there. So will he be scoring goals as well as playing golf? I presume is what they're asking us this morning. Joe Conroy is asking us, who would you want to see in the Euro golf event mic'd up, like Brady and Mickelson versus Manning and Tiger?
Like Ronaldo, right? And after that, I don't know. You can't put Messi because he's so quiet. But Ronaldo's vanity would have him stitched so tightly into his trousers that he also burst.
What about Wayne Rooney, as you mentioned?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Wayne Rooney, just like good patter. Wayne Rooney and Roy Keane, because Roy Keane's not very good at golf apparently and doesn't like it. And so him fuming around the course, throwing his golf clubs into the lake in the seventh hole and then sheepishly having to fish them out. The camera, like, just about capturing him on the fringe. Too scared to get too close to him, but also knowing full well that this is the money shot that's going to make your entire career, as like Keane, John Van de Vel style, folds up carefully the rolls at the bottom of his trousers.
And that would be the party image we have of Roy Keane. And who would be the professionals that they would play with? Is it Rory and John Ram?
Larry and Rory, right? Like, let's have a bit of crack here. Come on.
Okay, so let's kick Wayne Rooney out of it. Let's make it an all-Irish one.
No, Wayne Rooney's granny was Irish.
Yeah, he's Irish, Grant.
Yeah, big Irish head in him.
Yeah, okay, that's it. Sorted. Roy Keane and Rory McIlroy against Shane Lowry and Wayne Rooney.
Look, it's perfect. I actually think that you could make that happen. Although the two lads are in the States at the moment. If they were hunkering down in this part of the world, we could have got that off the ground. We're way over time here. If anybody has any better ideas for us, 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Of course, you can get us on Twitter. Use the hashtag OTB AM. All right, all this week, Aviva, Ireland's largest insurer, is marking the 10-year anniversary of the official opening of the Aviva Stadium and its proud long-term sponsorship of the iconic venue. To celebrate this milestone, Aviva have been paying tribute to some of the most iconic sporting moments of the past decade. Last week we went through the football moments. Former Sligo Rovers goalkeeper Kieran Kelly won it out with his 4 consecutive saves in a penalty shootout in the FAI Cup final. This week we've been looking at the greatest rugby moments of the decade in the Aviva Stadium. We want you to join in. You can follow Aviva Ireland on Instagram and on Twitter and share your favourite Aviva Stadium memories using the hashtag #SafeToDream. Rugby's greatest moments in the Aviva Stadium. The Wednesday semi-final is going to be Robbie Henshaw's try against England versus Ryan Crotty's try in 2013, and it's currently 50-50 in that one. So Henshaw's try against England in 2015 versus Ryan Crotty's All Blacks try in 2013. I have a feeling a lot of GAA folk are voting for Ryan Crotty. I think that's what's happening here. And then Thursday semi-final is going to be Jacob Stockdale's try against Brian O'Driscoll, breaking the try record against England. So that was the Six Nations try record. He obviously went on to score loads more as well. So Stockdale's try against the All Blacks. Yesterday afternoon, Eoin got a chance to sit down with the Ireland and Ulster star Jacob Stockdale. Really good chat. We're going to talk here about that historic win against New Zealand in Dublin and what he's been doing in lockdown as he looks to rediscover his best form.